Get out of my house if you cannot pay my rent. Please, I beg you. We have nowhere to go.
Rain poured from the sky. Yet Madam Rufina stood in the open yard, her fingers shaking with anger. A young woman knelt before her, holding a crying baby to her chest. Please, madam, the woman begged, give me till next week. My husband just died. Died? Madam Rufina laughed loudly. Did his death pay rent? The tenants watched from behind half-closed doors. No one spoke. No one moved. They had learned that silence was safer. Madame Rufina kicked the woman's bag into the mud. Carry your bad luck out of my compound. I don't run a charity. The woman gathered her things with trembling hands and ran into the rain. Madame Rufina smiled with pride, wiped her feet, and turned back inside. This was her morning habit. Madame Rufina owned the largest compound in Okeala village. She was rich, feared, and respected, not because she was kind, but because she was powerful. She increased rent whenever she pleased. She cut water without warning. She locked gates at night to punish late payers. Widows feared her most. Students avoided her compound, but no one dared challenge her. Money answers all things, she often said. That afternoon, she walked around the compound inspecting rooms, shouting orders, insulting tenants. Are you deaf? Clean this place. You smell poverty. If you don't like it, leave. Fear followed her like a shadow. Then she noticed a man standing quietly near the last room at the back. He was holding a small bag, his clothes plain, his face calm. Who are you? She barked. My name is Daniel, he replied softly. I came to rent the empty room. Madame Rufina laughed. You don't look like you can afford it. I will pay, he said simply. She narrowed her eyes, measuring him. You pay today, no stories, no tears, no excuses. Daniel nodded. I understand. As she walked away, she muttered, another week won. But Daniel remained standing, watching her back carefully. And for the first time in many years, Madame Rufina did not know that her house had just welcomed the beginning of her end. Very next morning, she stood in front of Daniel's door before the sun fully rose. She banged hard, loud enough for the whole compound to hear. Open this door. Daniel opened calmly, his face fresh, as if he had slept peacefully. You are new here, Madame Rufina said, folding her arms. Let me warn you, I don't tolerate nonsense. Rent is monthly, but rules are daily. I understand, madam, Daniel replied. She scoffed. Good, no visitors after dark, no cooking with firewood, no complaints, and don't be late with rent, even by one day. I understand, he said again. Her eyes narrowed. Most tenants argued by now. Some begged, some cried. Daniel did none of that. Throughout the day, she watched him closely. When water was cut, Daniel fetched his quietly. When noise rules were broken, he stayed silent. When other tenants complained, he listened but spoke little. That evening, Madame Rufina returned. Your room smells, she lied. Clean it again. Daniel nodded and cleaned. You used too much water, she accused later. Daniel apologized. The other tenants whispered among themselves. Is he stupid? Why doesn't he fight back? She will finish him. Madame Rufina smiled. She believed she had found her easiest victim. At the end of the month, she stood confidently at Daniel's door. Rent, she demanded. Daniel handed her the full amount, neatly counted. She froze. No delay, no excuse. That night, as she lay on her bed, her mind refused to rest. Something about the quiet tenant disturbed her. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in his room, writing carefully in a notebook. Outside, Madame Rufina paused near his window and heard the soft sound of a phone call. Yes, Daniel said quietly. Everything is going as expected. Madame Rufina's heart skipped. Daniel's calm voice echoed in her head. Everything is going as expected. Expected how? Expected for what? By morning, her confidence had thinned, though she refused to admit it. That day, she increased the rent without notice, as she always did. She gathered the tenants in the yard, her hands on her waist, her voice loud. From next month, rent has gone up, she announced. If you can't pay, start packing. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Fear, as usual, but something was different. One man spoke. Madam, you did not inform us before. Shut up, she snapped. Do you own this house? The man went quiet, but others exchanged looks. Courage was slowly waking up. Later that afternoon, two men arrived at the compound. They introduced themselves politely and asked about land documents. Madam Rufina laughed nervously and sent them away. This is my land, she said loudly. I've owned it for years. That evening, an old widow Madam Rufina had once chased away returned to the compound. Standing by the gate, she held worn papers in her hands. When Madam Rufina saw her, her face hardened. You again, she barked. The widow looked past her, eyes fixed on Daniel. He nodded gently. That night, she paced her room. Her phone rang. Unknown number. You should start preparing, a calm voice said. Preparing for what? Madam Rufina snapped. The call ended. Outside her door, Daniel walked past quietly, his notebook tucked under his arm. Madam Rufina stared at the ceiling, sweat on her brow. By morning, tenants gathered in small groups, whispering, not in fear this time, but in confidence. When she stepped into the yard, the usual silence did not fall completely. Some people still avoided her eyes, but others stood firm. She noticed Daniel talking quietly with a group of tenants under the mango tree. When he saw her, he stopped and greeted her politely. Good morning, madam. She ignored him. That afternoon, an official letter arrived. The envelope was thick, stamped, and sealed. Madam Rufina opened it with shaking hands. It requested her presence at the local council office concerning multiple complaints. Her heart pounded. She stormed to Daniel's room and knocked hard. No answer. She pushed the door open. Inside, the room was neat. Files were stacked carefully. Notes covered the table. Names, dates, signatures. You think you are smart? She shouted when Daniel appeared behind her. I think I am patient, he replied calmly. Madam Rufina raised her voice, but the tenants had gathered. This time, no one stepped back. You cannot bully us anymore, one woman said boldly. Madam Rufina looked around and saw it clearly. Her power was slipping. That night, she sat alone in her room, clutching the council letter. Outside, Daniel made a quiet phone call. Tomorrow, he said, we are ready. Madam Rufina listened from the darkness, her breath shallow. The walls she built with fear were closing in on her. Before Madam Rufina could leave her room, 3 officials walked into the compound. Their badges caught the sunlight. Tenants gathered silently, their hearts racing. Madam Rufina, the lead officer said, we are here concerning illegal rent increases, forced evictions, and falsified land documents. Her mouth went dry. This is nonsense, she shouted. I own this land. Daniel stepped forward calmly. Madam, he said, my name is Daniel Okore. I am a housing rights lawyer assigned to investigate abuses in this area. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Madam Rufina staggered back. You lied to me. No, Daniel replied. I waited for you to reveal yourself. Files were opened. Papers passed hands. The widow stepped forward with trembling fingers and presented her evidence. Other tenants followed. Madam Rufina's voice broke as the truth crushed her. You will come with us, the officer said. As she was led away, she looked back at the compound she once ruled with fear. The tenants watched in silence. Justice had arrived. Madam Rufina lost everything faster than she ever imagined. Her properties were seized. Her accounts were frozen. The courts fined her heavily. And her proud name became a warning whispered across Okeala village. People who once feared her now spoke her name without shaking. With nowhere else to go, she rented a small room in a crowded compound on the edge of town. The first morning there, she overslept. A loud knock woke her. Madam, rent reminder, a harsh voice shouted from outside. Rufina's heart jumped. She rushed out and met a tall woman with hard eyes, her new landlady. No late payments here, the woman said coldly. If you can't cope, Pack your load. The words struck Rufina like thunder. They were her own words. Days passed, and Rufina tasted the life she once destroyed. Water was cut without warning. Noise rules were shouted, not explained. She was insulted in front of others. When she complained, no one listened. She sat alone on the floor, her knees drawn to her chest. The proud woman who once ruled the whole compound with fear was gone. In her place sat someone small, broken, and ashamed. Earlier that day, she had watched a young mother in the compound beg the landlady for more time to pay rent. The woman's voice shook. The child on her back cried. Rufina's chest tightened. That was me, she thought. That was who I used to be. She stepped forward and spoke softly. Please, Titi, give her some time. The landlady turned sharply. Mind your business, tenant. The words cut deep, but Rufina nodded and stepped back. She had no power here, only regret. That night, she cried, not because she was poor, but because she finally understood. Days later, she had good news from the village. The tenants of her former compound were living peacefully. Rents were fair. The widow she once chased away had returned home. Daniel had moved on to help others. Rufina whispered into the empty room, I am sorry. No one answered, but the lesson remained. She began helping where she could, sharing food, speaking kindly, standing up quietly for others. It did not erase her past, but it changed her future. And slowly, she learned. Moral lesson. Power is a test. Those who use it to crush others will one day feel the same weight. Kindness costs nothing, but cruelty costs everything.